What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 333 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And this marks our 6th year doing the How to Hardscape podcast. Back in 2019, around mid-October, I started the How to Hardscape podcast. So I just want to take a minute, make sure everyone is aware of everything that we have available for free online, as well as our one paid resource, and just reflect on the past 6 years and the episodes that we've gotten into for those 6 years, just in case you want to go back and maybe catch one of those episodes from the past. But before we get into that, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Patio SEO has hopped on board as a sponsor, and they are a leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed. We've had him on the podcast a couple of times, some of our more popular episodes, and he owns hardscape businesses across the country. And now you can have access to the same in-house marketing team that he has access to at patioseo.com. So if you're looking for a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, check them out at patioseo.com. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIPHTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And Knowledge Tree Consulting has a free webinar on October 16th on financials in your business. The link is in the show notes to sign up for that. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. 6 years ago, 2019, mid-October, we launched our first episode of the How to Hardscape podcast. And with that, we started with 2 episodes actually. And that was the initial about the How to Hardscape podcast. I'd be actually very interested in how that sounds. Maybe I will cut that and play that right here for you. What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 1 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk with you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. Tune in every week as we cover a subject and interview industry leaders on how you can grow your hardscaping business, from new installation methods, techniques, tools, marketing, financials, and so much more. Join us on our Facebook page to find out first about everything that is going on at How to Hardscape, and join the growing community of hardscapers on our Facebook group, I Am a Hardscaper, where you can network with your peers. On today's episode, we are just going to talk more about what you can expect of the How to Hardscape podcast in the coming weeks and in the future, and how it can help you in all aspects of your business. Let's jump right into it. How to Hardscape is about more than just the name suggests. We are not here to teach you how to build a patio or construct a retaining wall properly. Some of our content will go into things like this, but it is more about building your business. Though some of our content will discuss proper practices and will discuss new techniques and tools that will make your life easier as a hardscaper, our focus is more on how you can grow your hardscaping business. We want to arm you with the knowledge of those that have been there and done that. People who have seen the best and worst of the business, know how to market, and understand where you should take your business to next. We want to arm you with the knowledge of those who have been there and done that. Industry leaders that know what they're talking about. People who have seen the best and the worst of the business, know how to market, and understand where you should take your business to next. We'll be interviewing industry experts in various fields in order to do this, and also talk about their own experiences in regards to various topics like marketing, financial systems, things that will really help your hardscaping business. In the coming weeks, you're going to hear from us about topics like starting a hardscaping business with no money, no experience, how to price and quote a landscaping job, everything that you should be factoring into your quotes, into your estimates, how to start your own website, and what it looks like to implement SEO, search engine optimization, into your website to make sure that you're ranking near the top of Google and in search engines. How you can use tools like Google AdWords and Facebook ads to, use your money wisely and to get leads into your business. Where to market your business online and offline and how you should be going about doing that. How to run Facebook and Instagram ads and so much more. We're excited to get to these episodes released to you, and we'll be publishing them every Monday here on out. And this podcast only works with you when there's listeners and when there's people really engaging with us in a back and forth. So whether there's something that you disagree with or want to hear more from us about, we want to hear from you. This only continues because of you. So we want you to engage with us. We would really love you to, send us an email or interact with us on our social channels. We want your feedback, and we want to know what subjects you want us to cover in the future of this podcast. We want you to share this podcast with your peers and on Facebook and anywhere else that you'd want to share it with people that would be interested in it. We want to continue to provide you with value in this podcast. And like I said, this only works with you engaging with us and letting us know where we can take this podcast in the future in topics that you want us to cover. And we're looking forward to releasing these episodes and everything that we've got coming forward to you. We've already got some interviews that are going to be coming out soon, and we've got some great subjects that we're going to be diving deep to both in the podcast and on our website. So if you haven't checked us out on these social channels, you can check us out first at howtohardscape.com. That's where all of our posts are going to be live, where our podcast episodes, you're going to be able to find them. Also in your favorite podcast app, you're going to be able to find us on Instagram, instagram.com/howtohardscape, and Facebook, facebook.com/howtohardscape. Those are our main channels where we're going to be active and where you can find us. If you want to shoot us an email directly, contact@howtohardscape.com. Again, everywhere, How to Hardscape, you can find us online. So thank you to listening to today's podcast episode. Like I said, this is just an about us type of podcast, something that you can listen to once and to know what you're going to get into when you're listening to this podcast. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information on this subject. Let us know what you want to learn about in future episodes by reaching out to us on our social platforms or sending us an email to contact@howtohardscape.com. We would love it if you'd subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. It really helps us get some traction with this podcast and to attract some great guests that we'll have on this show to deliver you more value. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast. So that just laid out basically the plan for How to Hardscape the podcast, and to really make sure that everyone knew that this was not just going to be about how to hardscape, but it's going to be a resource for hardscape business owners. And I've tried to keep true to that, especially nowadays. We have had some awesome guests on the show and continue to bring back awesome guests for second rounds. It does seem that the first round of interviews with a guest is really getting to know more about them and where they started and what kind of lessons they've picked up along the way. And then when we have those guests return, we usually have them pick a topic and go in depth with us for that specific topic. And I find it's that repeat appearance where we really get a lot of great valuable information. It's amazing how quickly an hour goes when you're sitting down with somebody, and especially if they're comfortable with a microphone and talking about their business and about themselves, how quickly that 1 hour goes by. So it's really that second hour, and once we have them back for a third time, that third hour, we can really go in depth on a topic. And that's what I've found over the past few years in being able to pick guests to come back on and really go deep in a topic that they are passionate about and they feel they know quite a bit about to give back to our audience on. And that's where you probably noticed, especially this past year, we don't really have I Am a Hardscaper episodes anymore. We more so have just a topic that I can pick out that we went somewhat deep in throughout that episode with that guest, and that becomes the episode title. I found that I Am a Hardscaper was a little bit less or too restrictive. And I also know that a lot of people, once they really scale their business, they're not necessarily in the field anymore, and they may not consider themselves so much a hardscaper. And some people feel very true to their roots and want to say that they remain a hardscaper, whereas others see themselves more as entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. So we've kind of gone by the wayside of that I Am a Hardscaper title there, at least for the purpose of the actual title, so that I can actually get what we talked about in that title, and it's not going to have that ellipses, that ... And so you can actually know what the episode's going to be about before you actually listen to it, or have at least somewhat of an understanding of what it's going to be about. Like I said, we started with that about episode. That was our episode 1, and then our episode 2 was how to start your business with no money. And that was just going in on how I actually went and started my business. And these initial episodes are really just me talking for 15-20 minutes. That's about it. But then I had other guests that I knew I wanted to have on the show. And those first couple of episodes were proof of concepts that I was going to actually stick with it. So I actually reached out to 2 people to see if I could have them on. And one was Paver Pete. Really wanted to have him on the show and had him on for a 20-minute episode. I've since had him on a couple of more times. And we've gone even further in depth in, excavation practices and something else, but this specific one was on different base preparation tactics, strategies. Then the other guest or manufacturer in this case I wanted to have on was Alliance, talking about Gator Base, because 2019 they were starting to pick up a bit more steam with that Gator Base. It really helped me in starting my business, especially not having equipment at the time to be able to put down Gator Base as our base. And especially in the locations that we were digging, where it was pretty much all clay, not much topsoil on top of it, that really did help my business. So I wanted that on the show. And then I did another episode talking about open graded base. So you can see that this trend at the very beginning of starting was more so about manufacturers and installation practices. So polymeric sand installation, I did a sit down for 12 minutes. These were very short episodes in the very beginning. I had Perma John talking about concrete edge restraints. Then we had warming trends, selling and installing gas fire features, and cleaning and sealing interlock with Technoseal. And so I didn't want to have repeat sort of topics from the very beginning. I wanted each episode to be evergreen. Still to this day, I do get manufacturers reaching out saying, hey, we want to talk about this on your podcast, but we won't have them on because it's already a topic that we've already talked about on the podcast. So how Unilocks, Unilift, U-Level, and I believe it's U-Vision help business owners was one. Ray Rodenberg was on that show, and he's been on a couple of times. And let's see here, vacuum lifting equipment. So like I said, a lot of more tools and equipment sort of things. But then we finally get into our first I Am a Hardscaper episode, where we sit down with a business owner and go deep into their business. So Matt of Hardscape Ottawa was our very first one. And then we had Richard Carroll, RC Outdoor. We had Marty Grunder on the show early on, so that was huge for me to get him on the show, and he's since been on the show a couple of more times. We had Stanley Dirt Monkey Genetic on the show, which was amazing. I remember reaching out to him on Instagram and just said, call me, send me his number. So this was back in 2020. And I think I sat on it. Actually, this was 2019. I sat on it for a few months and then finally built up the courage to call him, and he's like, yeah, let's do it right now. And that was amazing. So we literally did it on the spot when I called him. And let's see who else. We our third I'm a Hardscaper episode was Sean of Premier Outdoor Living. Paul Jameson, who is the host of the Green Industry podcast. He's been on the show multiple times. And lighting. So once again, getting back into those more sort of installation, but complementing the installation, getting people to use lighting and knowing your numbers. We had our first episode on knowing your numbers, and everyone knows that I love talking about knowing your numbers. So this is back in 2020, and this was estimating, budgeting, estimating job costing. So something that I've always been passionate about there. If you don't know, back in 2020, I started the budget and estimate spreadsheet. So I've always used this in my business, and then I fine-tuned it to be a lot more user-friendly, and then I started selling it in 2020. So that's where that Knowing Your Numbers episode tied right into that spreadsheet. And then eventually we started the How to Hardscape Headquarters Software, where you can now budget, estimate, job cost, time track, schedule. We've got courses. You can create your own courses assigned to your employees, and you can use our installation courses to assign to your employees, onboarding, training, so on and so forth. And we have a lot of new updates coming, especially our scheduler is going to be really dialed in, but we've got a lot of great things in the pipeline for that. So if you haven't already heard or thought about using a software in your business, the How to Hardscape Headquarters software can help you with a bunch of different things: employee management, chat groups, and so on and so forth. The goal is to have everything you'd want in one spot for managing your business. So you're not having a software for this and a software for that, that it's just one-stop shop for what you would want in your Hardscape business. I always tell people that it's me developing it for my business. It's just great that everybody can kind of hop on board, especially since we have How to Hardscape platform that people can learn about it organically through that. We're not spending money on marketing, so we can kind of pass the cost savings of that on to our clients that do come on board. And it's been a journey. It's been for the past 3 years, and we are really starting to dial it in for recurring based services. So a lot of people that I've done demos with, they have a Hardscape business, but usually they started with a lawn care business. They held on to that, so they've got maintenance, recurring services. And our software right now is really for project-based businesses. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, just project-based businesses, and you can customize it to your liking. But a lot of business owners have that recurring maintenance work, and they don't want to have another software for that. So that's something that we're going to get going through the winter months here. And then by the time spring rolls around, we'll have a full-fledged system for recurring and project-based businesses there. So that's going to be very exciting. And then beyond that, we've got a lot of cool features coming down as well to kind of exceed where the industry is currently at for softwares for our industry in specific. We've got I used to do full week sort of topics that every day in that week I would release an episode. So I know we've done one for marketing, and we had a full week of that. We've done one for safety. We had a full week of that, and more I Am a Hardscaper episodes. And then finally, looks like in late 2020, mid to late 2020, we really get more into actually having a lot more consultants on the show in a lot of different aspects. Gary Ross comes to mind here, and really doubling down on those I Am a Hardscaper episodes. And then we get into roundtable rallies and roundtables with hardscapers that have been on the show. So I would basically have that initial interview. Then I would invite 2 to 3 of those people that have already been on the show for a roundtable. And then we got into roundtable rallies, where everybody that has actually done a roundtable would get a message from me. Hey, we're doing a topic. This is the specific topic. We're doing it at this time. Do you want to join? And then that's where those roundtable rallies really started, and get a lot of good feedback on those. And I haven't done one at all this year, I don't think. I think the last one that I did was late last year. and it was just sort of a wrap up of the past year. Maybe I did one early this year where it was just like getting started. What are you guys planning on doing for this year, et cetera, et cetera. And those always got a lot of great feedback. So hoping to maybe bring back some more of those. I just don't like asking a whole lot from guests that have already been on the show to give me more of their time for this, but maybe I should look at bringing some of those episodes back. So that's a quick gist of what I have done with the podcast. And like I said, always really working on evergreen content so that you can go back and listen to this at any point in time and listen to any episode, and it's still going to be very valuable for you. And not repeating topics again and again, but making sure we've covered a topic. Once we've covered that topic, then move on and not have to recover that, especially with those manufacturers and getting into, I'm looking at this like geotextiles, geogrids. We have a separate episode for each of those topics, and it doesn't make sense to now have somebody else come back on the show to talk about geotextiles and geogrids because those episodes already exist. Unless something revolutionary was to come back on the show. Installing artificial turf. We had a great episode on that, and that is one I know others have wanted to back on the show or come on the show to talk about that, but those already exist, and that has always been the goal with me for this, to make sure that I'm giving you the best content that I can possibly give you every Monday on the How to Hardscape podcast, and making sure that it is worth your time and valuable here. So 333 episodes in, I hope that I've done this for you and that this podcast has been valuable for you. I do still get a lot of great feedback. We do still get reviews on Spotify and Apple, so I do thank you for that. And really, I do like to take an episode a year to just talk about the evolution of this. It didn't start with a podcast. I actually started in early 2019 with our website, the howtohardscape.com website. And that's where I was publishing articles. So we've got more than 150 articles at this point. And that usually is something that I focus on in the winter, just backlogging. I've got like 200 articles that I still want to write on various topics. And that is that's how this whole How to Hardscape thing kind of started. And then I, like I said, developed that budget and estimate spreadsheet, started selling that there. We developed our pricing landscaping projects course, which is free. I've always wanted to make everything as free as possible with How to Hardscape. So education is what I've always thought should and could be free. Both with this podcast as well as through the How to Hardscape website. The course was something that I wanted to help people with. So that gets into budgeting and estimating and recovering your overhead from a budget. So it is a 1+ hour course. There's 9 different lessons. Maybe something that I want to revisit to be able to add more content to. But we get into budgeting, overhead expenses. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know I've talked about different overhead recovery systems and why I like labor rate recovery as opposed to multiple overhead recovery or single overhead recovery. You've heard me go in depth on those. Overhead expenses and employees, production rates, factoring material costs, profit margin versus a markup, and so on and so forth through that course. So that is something that is always available to our listeners and howtohardscape.com visitors there. And we also have our free job board that we launched a couple of years ago, where you can post jobs that you have available, job vacancies in your business, and that is starting to get good traction on Google. So when people are actually searching for companies that they can go work for, that you are popping up there if you post on that. So that is just simply careers.howtohardscape.com, or if you just go to howtohardscape.com, it's the job board at the very top, and that is completely free. You're welcome to post there at any time for your business. But yeah, it started with the howtohardscape.com website, and then I started with the Instagram page to highlight contractors and their work. And that is the specific reason why How to Hardscape exists on Instagram, is to highlight other contractors' work in our feed. and share stories and so on and so forth. And that actually started in the summer of 2019. And then I had the idea for the podcast all along since early 2019. It just took me a while to kind of get the ball rolling into reaching out to people and seeing if they wanted to be on the podcast and making sure I had enough of those guests willing to be on the podcast before I finally said, you know what, let's do it. Sat down, recorded 4 episodes, got a couple of guests, interviews lined up, and then we were rolling with the How to Hardscape podcast. So that is the evolution there of howtohardscape.com to the Instagram page to the How to Hardscape podcast. If you listen to that very first episode, about the How to Hardscape podcast, you can hear that I talk about a lot of things that we still have. Our Facebook page, How to Hardscape, where we post updates there, but also that I Am a Hardscaper Facebook page. So it's interesting that even back then I was still thinking about I Am a Hardscaper. Now, if you know I Am a Hardscaper, it's really my personal sort of YouTube channel where I throw up our sort of in the field. That's where I document what I'm doing as a hardscape business owner. It's got a lot of tutorials as well for installing projects, but day-to-day projects that I'm working on, so on and so forth. That's our YouTube channel. We just hit 30,000. So that is amazing to see how that grew, but that didn't start until 2021 in July. So that I Am a Hardscaper Facebook group is open to anybody. I think we now have about 3,500 hardscape contractors in there, and I'm keeping it hardscape contractors. So we do get a lot of requests of people coming in, especially marketers that want to come into the group. I found with other groups for hardscapers, they're really just flooded with marketers trying to market their services. Even if it's a post that seems helpful, it's usually just trying to bait somebody into commenting so that they can message them, or it's sales reps and so on and so forth. And though those can be valuable people to have in a group, those groups already exist. If that's what you want, go to those groups. The I'm a Hardscaper group for hardscapers is specifically for hardscapers. So if you want a group that you can share your business, questions, anything, that's the I Am a Hardscaper Facebook group, and not the page, because there is a page there for I Am a Hardscaper for my content. And if you want more than that, I really wanted to do YouTube over doubling down on Instagram for my I Am a Hardscaper page, just because long form content lasts a lot longer. And even to this day, if I go into our YouTube studio here, I can see that our very first video was a 20-minute video on how to install a paver project, and that still is one of our top performing videos even to this day. So yeah, so if I go in and I see it's got 102 views the past 48 hours, and that just consistently does well, as opposed to shorter form content is a very short lifespan. And I felt there's a lot more value in creating that long form content, even though it takes longer. You can repurpose it for so many different things. And I've talked about this in past episodes of what I do with them. Basically, I use them in our proposals. So in the How to Hardscape Headquarters Software, in our proposals, I set it up so that it's automatic. Our step-by-step process of how we install a paver project automatically shows up in our proposal. And each step is hyperlinked to a video that's specifically about that step. So like how deep we dig. I have a video on how deep you should dig for a paver project, and how we prepare a base, how we screed, how we install our edge restraint, how we install our jointing compound, so on and so forth there. So those are hyperlinked. Our clients love it and love to see that we've got videos explaining the process. It's the number one thing that I hear from clients that sign up with us, that they signed up with us because we're so transparent with that. I also repurpose them into blog posts for my Ever After Landscaping website. So if you go to everafterlandscaping.com, you can see that we do have a blog page. It might be just called articles. I don't know. I can't remember. Or updates. And each article is just one of my YouTube videos of a project. So we have full project videos. And then I just turn that video into a blog post. So I get the transcription. I might edit it a little bit. And then I embed the video in there. And that is a great way to repurpose that video and to target a keyword that you might not be targeting already on your website somewhere. So just a quick tip there, but I've gone in depth in that in the past on this podcast and how I go about that. That is just my thought process on doubling down on long form content as opposed to short form content. We've had also support from some great sponsors, and currently, and you've heard them through this episode, Cycle CPA for your bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services. They've been our most loyal supporter of the podcast and can't thank them enough for that. We also have marketing. If you're looking for marketing, I really specifically wanted somebody that actually spoke our language, was still in the industry, which is rare. And I definitely saw a lot of marketers that popped up from the sort of bubble that we had in our industry where it was very easy to sell projects, and a lot of people just went off and started their marketing business from what they did during that time. But James Reed, Affordable Patio, very successful in terms of how many locations he's started and how many leads he needs to bring in, and qualified leads. You've heard him talk on the podcast a few times. We've had him on where he's really focused on just only looking at qualified leads that are coming in from their marketing efforts. So he's got an in-house team of marketers for his business, and I think he's up to 4 locations now across the US, and you've got full access to his in-house marketing team, which is a really incredible thing for them. So that is Patio SEO, and you can check them out at patioseo.com. We want to take a break from today's episode to talk about marketing. Are you looking to take your Hardscape business to the next level? Well, this is brought to you by Patio SEO, the leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed, who owns multiple hardscape businesses across the country. And here's the kicker. You're not just getting access to any team. You're getting access to the very team that helped grow James's own companies, plus hundreds of others in the industry. Whether you need a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, Patio SEO has got you covered. They've been in your shoes and know exactly what works. We've had James Reed on the podcast a couple of times, and they're some of our more popular episodes, talking about branding, talking about how he's built companies across the country. And with that, he needs lots of leads, which means he's had to perfect his branding and marketing. And now you can have access to that same in-house team that he has access to for his own hardscape company. So if you're ready to build your brand and see some serious growth, check them out at patioseo.com. That's patioseo.com, or follow James on Instagram at road to 100Ms. That's road to 100MS. Let's get your business the attention it deserves. Now back to the episode. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. And then if you're looking for consulting, we have Knowledge Tree Consulting, George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping. Once again, a consultant who is still in the industry. So they still have Oriole Landscaping. At this point, they're almost completely hands-off or hands-off fully at this point. So they've got a team in place there where they barely have to do anything. I think they go in to just help with even consulting their own business and helping their team there, but still in the industry, still own their landscaping business, and now do consulting across North America and I believe even overseas. So just another valuable resource there, especially somebody who still owns and has their own landscaping business as opposed to having maybe sold their business or gone bankrupt or so on and so forth there. I think that's very valuable to have a consultant that still is in the actual industry. And then, of course, we have HNA, who has been sponsoring the podcast for the past few months. Hardscape North America is our huge trade show in Louisville, Kentucky. This is happening on October 22nd to the 24th, 2025, if you're listening to this in the future. And this is an awesome trade show. I've gone the past couple of years. If you are planning on going, VIP HTH, How to Hardscape. So VIP HTH gets you 50% off your tickets. Make sure to get your tickets before you go because the price does skyrocket when you're there. I think it's $120 when you're there and you don't get the promo code to be able to save off of it. I think right now they're $60 and with 50% off they're $30. So make sure to get your tickets for that. And if you're going, message me at How to Hardscape on Instagram. We'd love to know if you are going and maybe we can catch up with you there. Hey, are you planning to attend HNA Hardscape North America, October 22nd to the 24th in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, you can use our promo code VIPHTH to get 50% off your tickets, or you can click the link in the show notes below to register for this. I've gone the past 2 years. It is awesome. A massive trade show along with the Equip Exposition with more than 1,000 exhibits, 42,000 square feet hardscape house, as well as a 30+ acre outdoor demo yard that you can demo equipment. There's the HNA Awards ceremony. There's lots of educational sessions throughout the day, and there's more than enough events before and after the trade show itself. I've always enjoyed my time. I'll see you there. Use the code VIP HTH to get 50% off your tickets and register sooner rather than later because tickets do increase leading up to the show. As landscape contractors, we're usually masters in the field, but in the office, things can get a little bit more complicated. And one place where a lot of landscapers could improve is when it comes to knowing your numbers. And to help your business become more profitable and stress-free, Knowledge Tree Consulting is hosting a free webinar on October 16th. Learn how to get more financial clarity so you can make better decisions as a business leader. I've added a link to the free online event in the description. Now back to our episode. But to close out the show, I did want to talk a little bit about our one paid tool. So like I said from the very beginning, I've really wanted to put as much out there for free to help that business owner just starting out or somebody who's just be thinking about getting into the industry or wanting to get into the industry. So it's a lot of content that we've created, both written, visual. So howtohardscape.com are articles. If you prefer written content with diagrams and so on, there's full guides on how to install pavers with different base preparation methods. So we've got open graded base, dense graded base, synthetic base, why you shouldn't be using stone dust. And we've got full guides on retaining walls. We've got full guides on installing every step of the way. So installing edging, installing polymeric sand, that semi-permeable resin jointing compound, and so on and so forth. So if you prefer written content, it's there for you. It's free. If you prefer visual content, we've got the I Am a Hardscaper YouTube channel. So like I said, all of those articles, or maybe I haven't said already, all of those articles I transported into visual form for that YouTube channel. So basically, if you do go to our articles on our website, you go to an article, if there's a video that exists on our YouTube channel, it's usually embedded on that page as well for the article. So you can always just go for visual and written form right there on the howtohardscape.com website. But if you prefer visual, just go to our YouTube channel and just search there for a specific topic. You'll get tons of videos. I think I'm well over probably about 250 videos there, long form videos. And then there's tons of shorts as well, but that's all available for you for free. And then, like I said, our course there on pricing landscaping projects. Now we do have courses within our software, and those would be essentially paid courses to be able to access those. and that is our installing interlocking concrete pavement. So we go a lot more in depth than what we have on the YouTube channel. So those are 3-hour courses for the interlocking concrete pavement course and the segmental retaining wall installation course. And like I said, they go a lot more in depth, and there are tests at the end of them, 50-question tests. And you do get a certificate of completion if you do complete it. But like I said, those are in our software, so you can also assign those for training and onboarding purposes for your employees. And we also have a lighting installation course and a gas fire feature installation course, as well as a course on budgeting, a course on estimating, and a course on knowing your numbers. And the knowing your numbers course has a couple of different modules from Cycle CPA. So one module is on in-depth breakdown of a balance sheet. Another one is an in-depth breakdown of a profit and loss statement or an income statement. So very valuable for those. I'm also going to be creating a marketing course during the winter. So that'll be creating a website using WordPress, creating a search engine optimized website. So what I do for search engine optimization and going real in depth for that. And then we'll get into a bit of paid ads as well. So Facebook and Google ads. But you've also heard on this podcast, marketing episodes that I've done, something that I am passionate about and that I do like talking about as well. So we do have a 5-part marketing series, I believe. And that is this past year, I believe. I did that early in this past year, maybe late last year. But as I was mentioning, our one paid tool that we have that you can support us if you'd like to, if you found value through this and you think about getting into a software or thinking about changing softwares. I work with anybody and everybody that's transferring from a different software or planning to transfer, whether you're tied into a yearly contract or have a few months left. We're happy to help you out and get you transferred into our software. With the way that we're pricing this is that if you do sign up, you're locked in on the pricing for feature growth price increases. So when we hit certain intervals in our development based on milestones that we're achieving, so for example, once our scheduler is dialed in, we're going to increase our price by about $50 a month. So if you sign up before then, you're locked in on your pricing that you signed up with for that feature-based growth or feature-based price increase. So it's a good way to hop in early before our price does go up for those feature improvements. And just to walk you through all of our different things that we've developed through this. So we've got a budgeting tool. We work off a labor rate recovery system. What that means is you set a amount of time that you have in your year that you work. So in my case, it's 36 weeks. And then you set the all of your equipment. So you budget for your equipment, you budget for your overhead expenses. And then the way the pricing system works is that if you say that your project is going to take 1 week out of your, or let's say it's going to take 3.6 weeks out of your 36 weeks. And that's 10% of your season. So 10% of your overhead is going to be applied to that project after you price out your materials and your labor for that project. So that's just how the labor rate recovery system works. It's very flexible and very easy to use as opposed to a multiple overhead recovery system where you recover your overhead through marking up materials, marking up labor, marking up subcontractors. The reason why I don't like that is because it's not flexible. It has you set the amount of dollars that you are going to be installing for materials in that year to be able to come up with a percentage of markup that you need for those materials to recover your overhead. And where that falls apart is if you do different projects, it can really throw off your numbers. So if you're doing the same project day in and day out, that is going to be a fine way to recover your overhead and actually a fairly good way to diversify where your markups are coming from. But if you're, say, doing a design build project 1 week and then the next week you're doing a lift and relay, those come with very different material expenses. Or if even a wall, so let's say you're installing a wall product that's $20 a face foot, and the next project you're installing a $30 face foot wall. Those come with, that's going to throw off that markup percentage because those walls could be actually fairly similar in size. It's just maybe their finish that gives them a different face foot dollar amount. So you're actually going to install them at the same rate, but that $20 face foot wall is going to give you less overhead recovery than that $30 face foot wall. Another easy one to go off of this is if you're installing 4x8s versus slabs. Slabs are more expensive, 4x8s are less expensive. And 4x8s take me longer to install than slabs do. And yet, even though 4x8s are going to take me longer, I get less markup on them. So like a 10% markup would give me less versus those slabs that are going in, and I'm recovering less overhead for that, even though it's going to take me longer. So that's just how I like to talk about and give an example of that overhead recovery method system. But I go a lot more in depth in previous episodes if you've already listened to those. And that's how our budgeting system works. Then you can add in your employees. You can add notes to employees. You can SMS message your employees through the system. Your employees can request time off, create reports. There are forms throughout the system that you can assign to time tracking. So we have time tracking, obviously, but you can assign forms to time tracking. So as soon as somebody clocks in, they get presented with your forms, and they could be things that they have to fill out during the day, at the beginning of the day, whatever you want to set them to. And you can set forms to different areas within the software. Let's see what else we have here. We have our production rate catalog, and you can actually clock in and out of production rates. And the way that this is good is after you've clocked in on a project, you can now clock in on your production rates to be able to measure whether or not your production rates are accurate or not. So if you are just starting out with a production rate, so you don't even have a production rate, you can still add that production rate in here, and then you can start to log and get data on how long that production rate is taking you in the system. And we'll highlight red the production rates that are off and give you the data based on your clock-ins of different projects of where you maybe went right or wrong with that production rate, and update as you go. So that is our production rate tracking. Materials, our material catalog, obviously upload your materials. It's fairly easy to do, and I help all of our users to be able to upload their materials into the material catalog. We have our CRM just got updated. So our CRM is a lot more clean. When you edit a client, you can see all of their information. You can email them, SMS message them. You can see all the consultations you've booked for them, projects you've booked for them, tags, however you want to tag them, and notes as well. We have a sales pipeline, so you can see the average amount of time that they spend in contact before they get scheduled a consult, from consult to sending them a proposal, and then from proposal to being an approved project. So you can actually see where your hang up is in your sales process, which part of those actually take longer, or you maybe can reduce in time. We have a vendor management system, so you can add your vendors in there. You can assign vendors to materials so that when you are creating a material order, it does it automatically for you. So when you quote a project, and let's say you order your pavers from one vendor and your plants from another vendor, if you have those all in the quote and then you click generate automated purchase orders, it'll automatically create the pavers for that one vendor and then the plants for that other vendor in separate material orders, and you can still edit it at that point as well. We have our project tab, which is quoting projects and seeing your closing ratio and so on. Job costing there. We're working on developing a Gantt chart system for a lot more complex scheduling, especially getting into subcontractors and maybe having multiple different crews in your business. So maybe you have like let's say you have a masonry team, you have a hardscape team, you have a planting team, you have a carpenter team, and just being able to schedule a project is a lot more easy using a Gantt chart system for something like that, where you can assign crews at different times throughout that project. We have now invoicing, which is something that we have been pushing off a little bit there, because a lot of people, our users, use QuickBooks for invoicing. So we do now have invoicing, time tracking reports, so you can get payroll sent off. Our submissions tab have all of your form submissions, time off requests, reports, and so on. Our courses I've already talked about, and being able to set up courses. You can do custom courses, think safety training videos. We do have examples of safety training courses that you can set up with YouTube links that are not my YouTube videos. So very important that We don't create those courses for you, but at least you have guides to help you create those courses, because that is not our content. We do have an announcements tab. So if you have a company-wide announcement, you can launch off an announcement to everybody. It's like a Facebook post where your employees or users can like, comment on them, vote in polls. We also have chat groups. So chat groups are custom. You can create custom chat groups for teams, crews, or even projects. So if a project becomes an approved project, anybody that you have assigned to that project will be added to the chat group. And one last thing that we are working on fine-tuning is our points system. So we wanted to create a gamification strategy for this software, because a lot of things that we hear are business owners saying, my employees just aren't taking to a software to, maybe before they had to clock, they just told me the time that they worked, and they're not wanting to have an app that they had to clock in and clock out on, and maybe go through the courses or so on and so forth. The points system allows you to gamify that. So you can set the amount of points that a user gets when they clock in on time, and an amount of points that a user gets when they remember to clock out at the end of the day, or completing a course, or anything along those lines that has different areas within the software that a user can take action on. And then you can set it to be able to be like a quarterly reward or monthly reward or a full year reward. And you can set up a system where you can reward your employees based on where they are in that leaderboard for the points that they've achieved through the system. So just something that we worked on developing there to make it a little bit more easy and rewarding for your employees to actually start using the system. And like I said, we do have scheduling. It is a very basic form at this point, and that's why we are doubling down on our resources to create an awesome scheduling machine. We do have our app as well. Our app has a lot of the features that you would need on the app that our web-based application does. And we're working on getting all of the features developed into the app. But I would say at this point, we've got about 90% of the features already developed in the app. Obviously, the obvious ones being the clock in, clock out, and so on and so forth. But yeah, a lot of different features already developed in the app. And then in future phases, we got a lot of cool things coming. Equipment maintenance scheduling. So with this, what it's going to be is for all the equipment that you have in your budget, that you've added to the budget, you'll be able to schedule maintenance for them. So you can also tie a form to a piece of equipment. So let's say you want to schedule every 100 hours an oil change for your mini skid steer or whatever that maintenance interval might be. You can just set that up as 100 hours, and then you can have a form that a foreman needs to fill out at the beginning of the day, typing in the amount of hours that are in that machine. And if it is at that 100-hour interval, then the notification will be sent off that that piece of equipment needs to be scheduled for maintenance. Same thing with trucks, for kilometers and so on. So there will be a full equipment maintenance sort of tab within our software for that. Our client portal we're going to revisit, and just creating a lot more easy system for quoting. So we're going to make it a lot more efficient for our quoting process to make it as simple as possible, reducing the amount of clicks that you need to make to be able to quote a project. But it's already fairly simple as it is, and it has reduced my time in the office for quoting projects. And that's where the toss-up is of whether you decide to get into a software or not. Is at our current $200 a month, what is your hourly rate? How much are you billing out for yourself? If you're like $100 an hour, does the software save you 2 hours a month once you have it developed and in process? Is it going to save you 2 hours a month? I can guarantee you it will in that quoting process alone, not to mention all the other different features that we already have with it. We also have email marketing in the system and being able to market to your existing clients within your CRM and where they're at in the sales process. So you can choose clients from let's say it's 2026, where in the spring you can choose clients clients from 2025 that received a proposal but didn't end up getting accepted, you can email all of those clients, hey, we saw that we sent you a proposal last year. We just want to see if you want to get in our schedule this year and revisit that proposal that we sent you from last year. So good way to email market your existing clients that are already paid for in terms of marketing spend, or maybe you didn't spend any marketing to get them. Maybe they were word of mouth, but a very easy and free way to get projects in your schedule, especially at that beginning of the season. And then a whole list of, I'm not going to get into all of these just because I do want to keep some of these close to the chest in terms of what we are working on. But a lot of cool things for both you as a business owner as well as your employees. So that is where we currently are at with the development of the How to Hardscape Headquarters software. If you want to learn more, go to hthheadquarters.com. We have pages for each of our features with a video explainer. That usually does lag behind a little bit in terms of where we are in development. But if you do want to learn more about that, you can go there and book a demo with me, or just send me a message at How to Hardscape on Instagram if you want to book a demo with me or learn more about the software. But I do really appreciate everybody for 6 years of the How to Hardscape podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in each and every week. If you've been with us since the very beginning, would love to hear from you. If you find this podcast valuable, it'd be great if you could share it with somebody else that you would see getting value out of it, leaving us a written review, rating. Those are easy ways for you to help support this How to Hardscape podcast thing. Our sponsors, if you want to, or if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, Cycle CPA. If you're looking for marketing, Patio SEO. If you're looking for consulting, Knowledge Tree Consulting. And if you are going to H&A, VIP, HTH, even in future H&As, you should be able to use that code and get 50% off your tickets. And I hope to see you there. And before we get going, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA, if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. PatioSEO.com. And now you know Patio SEO can take your Hardscape business to the next level. James Reed and his expert team have built a reputation on success, not just for their own companies, but for hundreds of others just like yours. So don't wait. Visit PatioSEO.com to learn more and get started. But also be sure to follow James's journey on Instagram at Road to 100Ms. That's Road to 100Ms for behind the scenes tips and insights. And I do recommend checking that out and following along to that. Ready to build your brand? Patio SEO is here to help you every step of the way. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIP HTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And we look forward to meeting you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.